Yo, welcome back to the Stuff or Whatever podcast. Host BQuanchi here. Before we get started, I always like to say the best way to support the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe. Three main socials: Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Links in the description of the video or about on the channel. I upload Let's Play uploads, kind of shorter form, in my gaming streams I do on Twitch. Those get uploaded as stream VODs on the same channel. BQuanchi all around. You can catch Twitter for fun tweets and updates and all that. We've got a very special stream today. And I was kind of thinking about the channel as well. It's one of those kind of weird things if you think it more of a hobby. Sometimes it gets attention, but it is what it is. It's a little itty bitty channel. It's nothing really, but I'm going to do, I think a lot of like the gaming stuff is pretty fun just to have up there to share, especially. I did some more recording, more the Let's Play stuff for like indie game demos that I want to showcase. So let's see. Sometimes I think about doing more freaking uploads, but then I don't want to like bloat it too much. And you find I was kind of like looking. I guess a little piece of advice, just for being itty bitty. But there's like more like video essay kind of stuff I want to do, more video game related. And it's funny, like I'm gonna do that like so often, have like 5 ideas on that, and I use Google Docs, and I think that's like very helpful. And like, oh, I have all these ideas, and like, oh, I barely have like one video written, and I was like looking through my video history, and it's been like 4 months, and like, oh, I'm lazy, but it's one of those like it's not a full time job, it's a hobby, and I do have other life and work and responsibilities, but sometimes like, if I put more into it, I might get more out. Not to say like, hey, just do this to get the views or get subscribers or get success, quote unquote. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I'm not like the best at in terms of like conveying these ideas or thoughts and things like that, even with this $5 podcast. But yeah, that's been kind of on my mind a little bit. So I might put more into it. Just depends. But I think most of it just like just being lazy, or like I catch myself like doing more like recordings for the what I call the BQuanchi gameplay, like for the Let's Play uploads. Like, oh, I have a lot of these videos that I'm like I've scheduled out for months. So it might be a little awkward, it might be weird, but it's not like too many eyes on the channel. But it could be, maybe. So the first thing I want to talk about on this podcast is Reddit. And it's not something I'm like too knowledgeable about in terms of like knowing all the ins and outs. I'm just kind of regurgitating what I've heard here and there. The whole thing, I think it's like the API or something like. I know like Reddit's like going to charge third parties a whole lot more for data sharing and all that. And a lot of the criticisms is that a lot of these third-party apps use that, and I think mostly moderators are the ones that use these apps to help moderate their communities and all that, which seems very helpful. I think like the average Reddit user, or just the average person on the internet who might stumble upon Reddit, like when you do a search, like how do you fix this, or like a tech issue, or this or that, and I don't use Reddit because I'm sure like a huge majority don't really know what's going on. But I heard mostly just like when the Phil DeFranco show, I guess there was like it's going to be like $20 million a year for a third party to have access to the data, which sounds like extremely steep. I don't know, because I think Apollo is one of the big ones out there that's like once these policies take effect, then like they're just going to go under. Like they can't really use the app because they can't access the data they need to have it run and all that. And then there's like quote unquote protests on Reddit, and it feels kind of weak because a lot of it's like much kind of like would you do in a 48-hour blackout when communities just go private, and then it kind of becomes a hindrance for people who like those communities, like a lot of like fandom ones, or again like tech stuff or this or that. But then it kind of like changed back. I feel like some communities are being more indefinite with the quote unquote blackout. I think one of the things is that if it's like not well known, like people are like, oh, and then it changes back. Like I think a lot of people are just going to be unaware of what's going on. Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out. Because I remember also hearing from Philip DeFranco. I guess like either by the end of the year next year, Reddit's going to be like going public and in regards to like trading and stuff like that, like stocks or whatever. So it's being like a bigger company, but you gotta wonder like if they're making these moves because they really need the money or if they're really hurting somewhere internally. Like I don't really know, but I did see some posts. I think Reddit's trying to push some of the mod tools they have. Because one of the things, like if Reddit can provide just as good as like moderation tools as these other third-party apps, then I don't know. It seems like it's shitty that these other companies are going to go under because of these decisions. But if like, oh, here's the tools that you've been wanting to have, so it's like I don't know too much Reddit. I don't get too involved with Reddit. Like sometimes I'll spend some time there, but it's like I think this isn't going to kill the platform. One thing I would think would be like really crazy, maybe almost funny, if like, what if Reddit disabled private communities, like disabled the option to go private? I wonder how that shit storm would be. Just out of curiosity, it's like uh, if people are like, oh, we're going private just to protest Reddit, like, oh, going private is not an option anymore. All communities are going to be public. Then that, I'm sure like a lot of communities would like delete, but it's like, okay, whether we force you to be public or not have this community at all on this platform. I'm sure that I like forums and stuff like that too. Just like it feels like Reddit's like too big to fail, but it's not 100% impossible. I like Twitter because how many times have you heard on Twitter a lot of people complain but still use it, and how many times like RIP Twitter, but it's still going strong. But yeah, just kind of curious how things play out because I think it's the beginning of next month is when it's going to take effect. Uh, we'll see. It's kind of hard to like cut away like if Reddit's making these decisions you don't agree with, and it may not really impact you directly. Like it maybe just like makes moderating communities a little bit more challenging. But then if Reddit comes back and remedies that with other tools, then it's like, okay, well, my biggest complaints are taken care of. It's just like someone's getting shafted with these third party companies, but do I really want to leave Reddit or protest Reddit or something like that? But I think just think the idea in the first place, like, oh, we're just gonna go black for 48 hours, and the fact that it's such a short time, especially since it was announced at a short time, and also that I feel like it's just a small fraction, although there's probably a lot of Reddit communities that bring a lot of traffic to the website and all that. But still, I'm not wondering how much is that going to hurt them. But Reddit can just go turn around and say, hey, you know what? This hurts us because they're private. No more private communities. And not that I'm encouraging that. I was curious just to see how that would play out. But yeah, I'm just glad I'm not like really that into Reddit, even though I do post sometimes. I just mostly like lurking, viewing some communities and stuff like that, just as a time waster. But curious to see how things go, and yeah, seems like a little news of the week. So the next thing I want to talk about is online streaming with services like TV shows and stuff like that. Because I heard, I know it's not the most recent news, but the whole merger with HBO, Warner Brothers, and Discovery, and all that. How it's now HBO Max changed to just Max. And I tried to look this up because I saw a tweet about it. But I guess with that change, that some writers of TV shows are not getting paid royalties. Because I'm not sure if this was the reason behind that changing with the change to Max, but I guess it's going from HBO from a premium cable to streaming. And I guess things work out differently in terms of compensation, especially with these royalties with the writers and stuff like that. And that they're not getting paid as much or at all. I didn't know very little about it, just from just seeing a few tweets. Like in my telephone, like this person said this, but I haven't seen articles. But that does kind of make sense. Because I know that's one of the big things, like when it comes to like the writer strike and I think they even carry with like the other guild. I forget what it's called it because there's like the actor and director one. I know like streaming is a big concern or issue in terms of like royalties and stuff like that. Just because in terms of cable and television, streaming is still relatively new, even though it's been around for a good while. But it's more like paying these writers royalties. I'm kind of curious how that works out, like how much and how often you get paid royalties for reruns on uh, basic television or cable or premium cable. But it kind of makes me wonder because I know I heard like rumors like financially Warner Bros. Is in trouble with this and that. Also, I know with all the like complaints with people like a lot of animated shows, especially like their original. Like I really love that one Close Enough, and I think that's just been delisted or just removed altogether, as well as Infinity Train. So it's just all these decisions, but I wonder if they made a change to Max, they kind of like rebrand or like change up the company. So like, oh, this is a streaming platform, so things work differently in terms of paying writers or directors or whatever. So if anyone knows like any resources or details or info, I'd be kind of curious to hear more about it. If when I do that in the comments, but yeah, it makes me think that hey, HBO Max went to Max just so they can find loopholes in terms of maybe saving a few bucks or whatever. And also wanted to talk about Netflix because another little news I heard from Phil DeFranco's show just following that is that it seems like maybe this quarter or whatever you want to call it, but Netflix has been seeing an increase in subscribers or new accounts or whatever you want to call it. I know like the biggest news with them is the what you want to call it account sharing. That's it, account sharing. Like they're kind of really cracking down on that and like detect if someone's watching from a different location. It seems like from small screenshots, they can note that you're traveling or something like that. So it's not because that would be my main concern is if it's gonna like false flag like oh someone else is using it. Like no, it's me. I'm traveling on vacation or this or that. But it seems like it. If I don't know if it's like the smartest thing they're doing, but I guess it works. Since I wonder if they're getting an increase in accounts because people are like, oh shit! Now if I want to watch Netflix, I need my own account, and then the person won't share it because they don't want to be blocked or have issues with the Netflix. And we'll see. I know with the whole writer strike and all that, how big Netflix is going to be in terms of new shows and content because I know people are waiting for the next season of Squid Games and Wendy, which I believe is very in early development. I'm not sure for both of them, but I probably won't see them for a while. Probably more of a delay with the strikes and also Stranger Things too. That's supposed to be wrapping up. But I feel like Netflix is kind of weird when it comes to like existing shows that they have streaming rights for. I watch a lot of anime, and sometimes it feels like they don't have all the seasons or like cartoons. Maybe not as much like Hulu or other platforms. It's kind of like weird how you almost need to like if you want to watch these episodes for this series, go here, then you go here, then you go to this streaming platform. And also, I guess Netflix is also getting more accounts with the cheaper plan that does have advertisement. And yeah, I guess that works. People like I don't like people keep playing so much because like if you have basic Netflix without ads, it doesn't affect you. Although there probably is like price changes, so maybe in some way. But it's like if you don't like it, then don't get it. You can still have the Netflix you're used to. So I think maybe that's helping people kind of like okay, if I save a few more bucks on Netflix, or if that was because with so many streaming platforms and all that, and pay for this, pay for that, it can really add up. And I always thought with Netflix, they always had this plan. I think it is annoying in some sense because I know that you have to pay more to get the higher definition, like the 4K streaming, but you also had to pay more to get multiple screens. So I always felt like that was a deterrent from password sharing. Is that like, hey, I don't want to my friends to share my Netflix account because if they're watching Netflix and I can't watch Netflix, or vice versa, or if you have like family members and like I know some people like trade logins information. Like, okay, you got Hulu, I got Disney Plus. You got this and that. But I don't know. It seems like because I know there was a huge dip in accounts for Netflix because there's some people like saying in the height of pandemic, like a lot of these services, got a huge influx and as things calm down, all that. But it seems like Netflix is doing a little bit better. Like I don't know. I almost feel like they'll all kind of run together with all these streaming platforms and all that, so you can't really mess up too badly. But yeah, I guess it wasn't the dumbest decision, and I'm kind of curious how that'll play out. Like, if Netflix like, hey, we enforce these password um, sharing, um, to crack down on that. And then what if other platforms like Hulu, hey, they can do that and get even more accounts? Maybe we should try that, or like Max or Disney Plus. So that's the one thing I'm kind of curious if this is going to cause a little start of a wave of other streaming services enforcing password protection. But we'll just have to wait and see. So next, I wanted to take a time to talk about indie games. And I really love indie games. As a gamer, I would say that's what I mostly play. Although I do have a Nintendo Switch, I feel like besides playing indie games, I've been mostly doing it on Steam, on my computer, which I do stream, so check that out. But I Switch does a lot of these like indie games are multi-platform anyways. But I do occasionally play like the Pokemons or the Zeldas and stuff like that. But yeah, just kind of getting on a little, not really a soapbox, just like praising indie games because I don't know, I just really like them a lot in terms of one thing my first mind went to is that generally they're kind of cheaper. I know a lot of people say, and in terms of price tag, but they are very fun. Some of them can be lengthwise a little on the shorter side. A lot of it's, I think, from other bubbles or whatever in the gaming sphere, the sectors, what do you want to call them, kind of criticizes them to being a little more too simple or like more like the pixel graphics or little Metrovanias and stuff like that, which I do like, but this is a great variety. And I think the simple graphics makes it like, because you always hear when people are playing like AAA titles on PC, like, oh, you have to get a new graphics card or have these specific settings, or if this is messed up, like my frame rate's gonna drop and stuff like that. And you always see like, I know it's a funny little post with like, I think just as Golem came out, like all these title companies like post like an apology after the game's release, like it's not performing right or stuff like that, like Cyberpunk and I think even like the Fallout 76. Although they made a whole lot of Fallout games up to 76, but you see all these apologies like expectations and stuff like that, and it's like indie games don't really have that much problem. Although I do indie games that are more 3D. I think a lot of times they lean more towards the 2D ones, so it's kind of like, of course, with a bigger engine and like a bigger environment, gameplay wise, other bugs can definitely pop up and all that. But I haven't had too much issues, and getting kind of like a cheaper price tag is kind of nice. And I like what I get, and sometimes it's like fun to replay, even if they're a little bit on the shorter side. I think they have more replayability because and maybe everyone's different when it comes to their gaming preferences and stuff like that. But sometimes with some of these big AAA titles, like once you beat it, like okay, I just definitely want to move on. Like even though like God of War is such a great game, like you probably don't want to like replay the whole story again. Like you can get most of it out of one playthrough. But then again, some people can enjoy it playing over and over. But yeah, and I think that's why a lot of times I kind of lean on indie games for streams. Although some other stuff I've been playing too, sometimes retro and all that, especially indie game demos too. Just because and that just reminds me that I kickstarted my first, pledged. I backed. I did my first backing on Kickstarter for Checkmate Showdown, which is like a mashup of a chess game and a fighting game. Really cool. I do recommend checking it out. But I think I'm gonna have that habit with some of these indie games. I like follow or like. I think Twitter still does a good job of like feeding me indie posts for games and stuff like that, but I'll like wishlist them, follow them, retweet them, and all that. I kind of want to get a habit of if I when I can back them on Kickstarter because I with Checkmate Showdown that was the first time actually signing up for Kickstarter and back in the game because like, well, I'm gonna get the game anyways, or I want to get the game anyways. And it'd be kind of cool to have names in the credits. I know like it doesn't mean too much if there's like a bunch of other backers and stuff like that. Just one name on the list, but like, hey, that's just kind of neat. I find it neat. It also gets me the level I did was to get some early access to the beta. So I'm wondering I might show that on the channel eventually, just depending on how things play out. But the other one like there's the guinea pig parkour that I want to back. I don't think that launched yet. But yeah, there's something I kind of want to do. And it also goes back to what I said before on previous podcasts is if this things were a little bit bigger, I would kind of like to be more of a platform for indie games in terms of like showcasing them versus like demos or series on Let's Plays or streams and stuff like that. So I actually got one indie game that was, I guess you could say, gifted to me. One called Petite, which I did stream and then also I did another upload on Let's Play, kind of a shorter video as well. But it is kind of cool, like, oh, someone's actually. It's funny because another like a piece of advice: the email address I have kind of associated with the channel is just for a separate one I made that's for emails only. So I'm kind of like bad at checking it, but it's not linked to any crucial logins and stuff like that. Because I still get, I mentioned this before as well, I still get weird on Google Drives, like someone posting like a copyright thing. Like it's kind of like fill information for like a recent video. I think even for one of the shorts, they did that before. But it's like, oh, copyright, and like, nope, that's not true because YouTube Studio says nothing. Nothing was sent to my actual email that's linked to the YouTube, and yeah, it's just like a comment, like a PDF that's like shared and commented at me. So just like watch out for that. But yeah, I remember like a while back, you'd like, nope, you always see it in studio, so that's definitely not them. I try to report it, but yeah. Then also another thing with indie games, I kind of stumbled across this. I think maybe I heard of it, but I believe it's like a YouTube channel, or like a I don't want to call it like a network or just like let me call it for, wholesome games, and they usually have a bunch of like trailers for indie games. And they did a direct recently, like a presentation. I thought it was pretty neat. I feel like a lot of it's, again, leans on the word wholesome, but they kind of a lot of them are more like sandboxy or easy to play. I don't want to kind of want to check out called A Little to the Left. It's kind of like an organization game, so that might be fun to check out. What's another one that looked kind of neat is like a volleyball game, but with like a Pokemon gimmick to it. But yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. So it's like, oh, I think a lot of it is like visually creative and fun. Yeah, and I think part of it is that it's not as like competitive or like copying other games in terms of like the big 3D action game or whatever. Because I know like part of the stream they mentioned they had like a fundraiser like for T-shirts for I forget what it's called, but it focuses on people with disabilities playing games, like making like different tools or accessories or peripherals or whatever you want to call them to help people with disability play these games. And I think also with these wholesome games is like how they are designed. Kind of got to be a little bit more laid back and a little bit more like sandboxy, or not like overly difficult or hard or challenging. I think that helps a lot with people with disabilities to find video games accessible. So I thought that was really cool, and it kind of made me think more about it. Because also kind of makes me think with people with autism too, because I'm kind of curious. I don't want to get too in detail to my family in terms of like relatives, but I think one of my nephews might be on the spectrum, or well, I don't really know. So But like one thing that I just noticed, like when I'm in town or something like that, and I'm playing like Smash Bros, they'll could get really frustrated with losing in competitive video games. Versus if something's a little bit more calming and all that, kind of fun. So I'm wondering if there's been any studies in terms of like video games, like if they were action packed or difficult or competitive versus something easygoing. If how you know children, teenagers with autism, how they respond to that. I think like probably one of the more popular, bigger sandbox titles is the Animal Crossing. That kind of makes me wonder, like in terms of like also accessibility with people with like disabilities and also people with like autism, what have you. In terms, because I think gaming changed so much over the year, and it's like how much we uh, learn as a society about people. Because I feel like even when I was a kid, like I never heard the word autism or like had that as a concern, even though that probably could have been the case. And I know with different times with like, oh, we live in a day and age with so many different screens, so much like social media and stimuli, this or that. So who knows for sure? Well, I hell don't for sure don't know. But it's gonna make you think. I think they with indie games you also can find a very competitive ones too as well. So not like all indie games are wholesome, but I think I find a little bit of that even if it's not quite my cup of tea, it's like something like, oh, that I'm glad it exists because there's probably not just say it's a good market for that, but there's a good audience for that that can really appreciate those style of games. And you have really difficult ones like some of the ones I've been playing on stream, not kind of older, but Blasphemous and Hollow Knight are some good indie challenging ones as well. And like Hades, I that's one of my favorite indie games as well. Oh, can't wait for the sequel on that. But yeah, you definitely not a lack of difficulty, frustrating indie games, but then it gets a weird, like absurd and crazy, or even like the I don't know. It just depends. Like I'm barely scratching the surface when talking about how much I love indie games, but I think just like from a consumer point, price wise, I like the cheaper prices versus like paying $60 or $70 a game. And it just feels like it's fun to just dive into and not just like, oh, I have to have a game simpler or all that, because there's some complexity with some of these indie games. But just, I would say when it comes to video games, that's where a lot of my, I guess, for lack of a better word, passions goes to. But definitely deserves a good shout out, even though there's like you see those indie directs from Nintendo and other parties as well. But just wanted to make a little blurb on it for this podcast this week. Okay, and then last, I want to end this podcast, bring back a segment I did once before, but I'll do it again. Going through Am I the Asshole Reddit. That's when I was just talking about Reddit earlier. And I feel like this is one of the bigger communities. I don't think it went private for that little protest, even though all the communities are still going private and definitely. But let's get started. I'm just going to go over 4 Am I the Asshole situation. And this is like someone makes a post about a situation and asks, like, am I the asshole for doing this or thinking this or saying this, whatever. And it's almost kind of like, I kind of wish it was a thing you can see, like, you can actually do polls or stuff like that. But you can just kind of like scroll down and see how many people kind of agree with the original poster or the author of the post, all that. But for this first one, am I the asshole for refusing to help cook after my wife canceled my catering order? So, yeah, just kind of going through the cliff notes of just summarizing this post. The poster and their wife are hosting a retirement party for his mom, and all that. So, gonna be like for 20 people. So they set up for catering, and it's going to cost like $300. And like, I guess like the thing is not his wife and his sister-in-law, so his wife and her sister. So that's too high, and do the math, and like that's $15 per person, and for catering for food, bet in like a fast food combo, that seemed pretty decent. Actually, maybe even pretty well a good deal if you think about it. That way you can get out of cooking, especially if you're hosting all that. Um, but then they wife canceled it and all that. I think there was like financial concerns other ways, but I don't know what the logistic was, like who was going to pay for what. Um, but even said like again looking through it more, just kind of rereading it. So the poster was going to pay for it as well. So it's not like he was going to okay, we're going to do this and you had to pay your share. I can see how that can be considering, but like, just food wise, like sure it'd be a lot cheaper to cook yourself, but then you spend so much time and all that. And then with the plan on going to cook food, they wanted the poster to cook as well, since sister-in-law and brother would be watching the kids, because I guess it's like it's again it's for the mom and stuff like that for retirement. But then the poster said that they're not going to cook. That he'd offer to watch the kids, and then like wife says, you're being a jerk and sexist and refuse to help. But then, because like saying, although it would make the woman do the cooking, all that, and yeah, I think part of it is that they went behind his back to cancel the catering order to figure out the plan, but he's not helping. But that's like the summary of it, and I would say not the asshole. Even a lot of the posts like that, because he had it all taken care of. He even offered to take care of it financially if that was an issue. But like, nope, they want to cook, and like, okay, you can cook. Like, I had my plan, which you went behind my back to cancel and all that. I feel like that might cause issues with the marriage too, but it's like feels like I told you so kind of thing. But yeah, I just don't get the idea, because even like I never host stuff or have any experience with hiring catering and food and all that. But it's like, hey, that $300 they take care of it for my mom's retirement. I'll definitely do that. Not worry about cooking and stuff like that. Like I'll just probably like cook chicken nuggets in the oven. That's like my catering for a party. That's why you pay someone else. But yeah, this just seems like definitely not the asshole. All that. But let's move on to the next one. Okay, this next one's kind of short and sweet. It's a married couple, and the thing is, am I the asshole for not throwing my husband a birthday party? So they are in their late 30s, and they just had a son as well. And yeah, then the husband was turning the big 40, so the big 40th birthday. And then the posts were saying that he made it clear that he didn't want a huge party. So instead, they invited some of his closest friends and family to go out to a nice dinner. There's some who couldn't make it, but it was like a small dinner out, which seems nice. And the post also said, like, with having a new son, new child, that was, taking a lot of attention as well. But then, like, the husband gets all angry and is this screaming that the wife ruined the 40th birthday. And then kind of having an argument like he told me that you didn't want a huge party, and then it's like, oh, you should have expected him, like, oh, even though I said I didn't want one, I actually wanted one, kind of thing. Yeah, a lot of people just going through the posts said, definitely not the asshole. Like, that's one of my pet peeves. And someone says, oh, I don't want this when they want it. Like, you can't be a mind reader, and it's kind of like, oh, don't do this. I hate having a huge party. Like, just say, oh, if you want a party, then say so. Like, don't do this, like, teenage girl nonsense. Act like a grown-up and all that. But it's, like, also like, hey, you say you didn't want a huge party, so don't bitch when you don't get a huge party. And all that. And especially, like, it's like, sometimes it almost, like, I don't want to say like breaks my heart, but when you see like these kind of posts with people who are actually married and stuff like that, like, how long is this marriage going to last? Like, this feels like definitely going to cause some cracks in the marriage like this. But yeah, it can be exhausting, but like, tell me what you want. And if you don't want it, then you don't get it. And if you wanted it, don't say you don't want it. Like, I hate when people say like, oh, I don't care, but they actually care. Like, what do you want for dinner? Like, oh, I don't care. Like, how about this? No, I don't want that. Then obviously you care. Like, I can get on a little soapbox about that, but no, they're not the asshole. I think a lot of these are going to be the case. For the next one, Am I the asshole for telling my friends that the baby's name is ridiculous? Now, looking at the title of the post, you would think, oh, okay, that's kind of an asshole thing to do. Like, you're going to name the babies and stuff like that. And, don't no harm into it. But the name of the baby is hashtag, like the pound sign, like the thing you see on social media, Twitter, TikTok, all that. And that is a ridiculous name. And it's funny, like they mentioned in the post, like some in a friend group agree with it, but then some they're like not being that supportive and stuff like that. So sometimes worry about keeping your opinions to yourself, because like if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. But it's like, what were the parents thinking? Like, I feel like that should be a test for giving birth. Is like, once your baby's born, you name it. Like, you chose a wrong name. I know there's some names that are banned, like Adolf Hitler and stuff like that. Or I'm not sure what the whole story is behind that, but I feel like you don't name baby hashtag, because it's probably going to get bullied and stuff like that. And this is another one that people kind of agree not the asshole. Like, I'm not sure how they went about it in terms of if they're like rude or like, that's just a fucking stupid name versus criticizing it. And I guess it depends on the account, but don't name your baby hashtag. I was even reading through the post. I guess the first person to do it, but yeah, that definitely sounds like a stupid thing to do. And this last one, am I the asshole for evicting my brother and his family for insulting my husband, causing him to be homeless? This one was kind of a long one, so another one I kind of have to like summarize. But like the poster grew up in a very conservative household, and this also has to do with his older brother, which is about 4 years older than him, and having like extreme bigoted views, and that the poster is gay and had some hard time growing up. He did get a good chunk of inheritance from his grandpa in his 20s, which is said in the post. But he also came out and then moved away, and they reacted horribly and all that. So they he's even saying that that he's going to rot in hell and that he was dead to them. And I haven't spoken to them. And then since then, like the poster got a great job, got married, has a husband as well. And then like he got a message from his older brother that he lost his job, but kind of like also apologized and wanted to reconnect. And then like worried about being evicted with his wife and 2 kids and all that. And this new place for like a few months just to get back on the feet. And first instinct was to say no, but give them a chance just to see if things, if they really change and stuff like that. But they made like really, clear rules, like, don't disrespect me or my husband or our home. Don't bring up politics or opinions and stuff like that. And then definitely were some issues eventually. Like, it's a little bit sensitive too, but like having derogatory term from the brother to the husband, and basically like them having messes and stuff like that too. So I feel like it wasn't really working in terms of respect the house with like get everything all messy and all that. And so they kicked him out and almost threatened to call the police. I think one thing in the post is they had 2 days to pack and get out. And in this one, people said not the asshole, and I would mostly agree with that too, because I feel I know family's really important. But one thing that always bothers me when people like feels like you have to love family, at least a blood related family, unconditionally. I think that's typically the case. I always like to kind of have a more positive view on that, but sometimes chosen family is more important, especially more supportive, just depending on who's in your life. But I feel like just because the blood related doesn't give them a constant free pass to take advantage of you, to have second, third, fourth, fifth chances and stuff like that. So I think especially with the beginning of the post, like, saying, hey, you're going to rot in hell and you're dead to me kind of thing for coming out, it's a tough situation. Like some people like saying, with the kids involved as well. And it seems like they have family that are kind of getting on the poster about his decision. Like they could help too, but also the poster edited confirmed that across the country, so it's more practical for them to live with the poster. But it's like, hey, if you care about these relatives and you take them in, make them move across the country if they need to, or financially support them. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that as well. Personally, also, I always feel like if I was in that situation that I needed a place to stay in between jobs, getting back on my feet, I would be like super respectful in terms of my living condition. Like I'm not the cleanest person. Like some of a slob, but if I'm living with somebody in a temporary basis, even if it's going to be like a few months, I'll keep things clean. I might offer to cook. I might do this and that. So it feels like it's more on the brother and the family. Because it sounded like they weren't as good living partners, whatever you want to call it, with family members, like making messes and stuff like that, and then throwing the Geisler around. It's unfortunate. The only thing I think would maybe give them a little bit longer time than 2 days, like maybe a week, or maybe two. Maybe it would be a little bit nicer. But it's like one of the things, if you give them an inch, then they take a mile kind of thing. But I think it's important to, like, it's not just like families, blood related. It's who actually treats you like family, not just like whatever definitions of what a family member is, but who treats you with that respect, that love and support. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to family. I know the recent Fast and the Furious movie came out, so it's like my mind went through those memes. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting Am I the Asshole to end on. And I'll end the podcast on that. So thanks for listening. Again, the best way to support me and the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe. Go to YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Again, I do streams and other Let's Play like recordings, uploads on the channel, so check those out. Feedback is appreciated, especially any recommendations as well, because this is me kind of blabbing on and a microphone. But actually, I always feel like I'm not going to have much to say, but then somebody's like, oh, I'll just get a solo podcast this week. But anyways, you all take care and have a good rest of your day. Bye.